We at Temple Emunah are so fortunate to have so many people who are willing to step up and do things. Yesterday, I wasn't feeling 100%, didn't think I could do the part of the service I was supposed to do last night, called Ken Teitelbaum. Sure, I'll cover Mari for you. Talked to David Shrebnick, said, I'm not completely sure I can run the service tomorrow. No problem, I'll do that for you. And it's not only people who pray, it's also people who organize, who take care of small details that we may not even be aware of. There are so many people in this community who step up when asked and when not asked. And one of those people we are fortunate enough to hear from today to deliver the Devar. Last week, for her 70th birthday, Barbara was honored with an aliyah, and we heard about all the different things that she does in this community, so I'm not going to repeat them, but suffice it to say that she has her fingers in many different parts of Emunah, and we are all the better for it. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce, looks like, Barbara Posnick and her partner in crime, Carl Mickelson, who are honoring us this week with a Devar Torah. Barbara.
You have little song sheets. Please join us. Limnot Yameinu, Limnot Yameinu, Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda V'Navi Levav Chochma, Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda V'Navi Levav Chochma. Teach us to treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day. Limnot Yameinu. Limnot Yameinu. Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda V'Navi Levav Chochma. Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda V'Navi Levav Chochma. Limnot Yameinu Ken Hoda V'Navi Levav Chochma. Teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. That's from Psalm 90, verse 12. The verse in this song can more directly be translated as teach us to count our days, that we may obtain a wise heart. This psalm is in our liturgy in Pesukei de Zimra, though it's actually one of the psalms we don't usually include at Temple Emunah. And the verse is part of the Yizkor service, understandably. I think it was also the inspiration for the words our rabbis often include after a milestone birthday aliyah. We may count the days of our lives, but a person of wisdom makes every day count. A little over a week ago, I turned 70. Yay, yay. And it feels to me like a major milestone, even more than other milestone birthdays, and a time for pause and reflection. Our tradition sees 70 years as a significant number that represents completeness and, God willing, wisdom. According to Pirkei Avot, one who reaches the age of 70 has lived a fullness of years. That doesn't mean the end, but it does mean that at 70, one has had a life of wealth experiences, and age 70 can be seen as a new beginning. So when I heard that the rabbis were looking for someone to do the Dvar Torah this morning, I agreed to take on the opportunity to reflect more on this milestone and share some thoughts. And I hope I'm not being too self-indulgent, and these personal reflections can be something that others can relate to. This week is, of course, also the beginning of the new secular year, which can be a time of looking back and looking forward, not as intensely as during the high holy days, but still a time of reflection for some resolutions and for setting an intention for the coming year. This past year, I've been very aware of counting my days and that our days may be numbered in a very intense way. In February, when Mike Rosenberg died suddenly, I experienced the loss very deeply. In addition to missing Mike personally, missing his presence here and the huge gap in our community, I could not stop thinking that any of us could be taken at any time. The second Shabbat after Mike's passing, I was sitting here in Shul thinking about Mike, and in a flash it came to me that I was not living my life as fully as I wanted to be. I was not doing what I could to prevent a sudden death, and that I was ready to take major steps toward my physical health. I decided I would call my doctor on Monday. So now it's been 10 months of lifestyle changes and physical transformation. I'm grateful every day for modern medicine and for feeling so much more healthy and energetic now than I did when I turned 69. I think it's because both the physical and emotional weight has been lifted from me that I'm able to approach turning 70 with a sense of possibility and more optimism. I told somebody about this recently, somebody in our community, and they said they thought Mike would be honored that positive changes have happened in his memory. I hope this is true. My life was going along smoothly, and then in August, I had an infection that came on rapidly, endangered my airway, and ended me in the ICU. Thanks again to modern medicine, I returned to full health relatively quickly, and I was able to get to California about a week and a half later, 2 days after the birth of my grandson. But this incident made me keenly aware of the fragility of life and how things can change suddenly once again. For the first time in my life, I benched Gomel, and it was a powerful experience. So now that I've reached an age connected with wisdom and fullness of life, I've been asking myself, what should I be doing differently? How should I shift my thinking? How do I measure my days? Can I acquire a wise heart? How do I make every day count? And of course, we have the perfect Parsha. This week's Parsha Vayechi, as we've already heard and read, includes Jacob's and Joseph's last days and provides us with some lessons and insights into approaching our older years. In the part we read this week, and as Marcy so beautifully talked about, Jacob elevates Ephraim and Manasseh, Joseph's sons, adopting them as his own, and grants them tribal status. This is an example of advanced planning. Jacob is thinking of his legacy and shaping how the future will function after he is gone. He knows that continuity requires intention. This moment teaches us the importance of planning ahead and supporting those who will carry responsibility after we're gone. and making those decisions while we still have the clarity to do so. As Jacob nears the end of his life, he gathers his sons to his bedside. Jacob's words are sometimes called blessings, but many of them are harsh and brutally honest. For example, he says that Reuven is unstable as water. He condemns Shimon and Levi for their violent acts, saying that their weapons are tools of lawlessness and that they've killed in anger. Even for Joseph, who, even at his death, he favors and blesses profusely. He begins with reminders of Joseph's suffering. So the question arises, why are these words so severe? Maybe it's because until his dying days, Jacob avoided hard conversations. He didn't adequately address his son's behavior or his favoritism of Joseph. He didn't confront his son's violence. And he probably had some unresolved grief and mistrust from being told that Joseph was dead and then finding out he had been alive all that time in Egypt. Had some of these conversations happened earlier, maybe his last words would have been gentler. Maybe the relationships with his sons would have been healed. And maybe he would have had less to say at the end. This can be a teaching for us. Relationships and family relationships in particular need our attention and nurturing all along. And sometimes we need to have difficult conversations. Joseph's words and actions in his last days are a striking contrast to Jacob. Joseph suffered deeply in the hands of his brothers, but unlike Jacob, he doesn't wait until the end to confront the past. In last week's Parsha, and again this week, right after Jacob dies, Joseph reassures his brothers. He tells them not to be afraid of retribution for their acts against him. He reconciles with them. And by the time Joseph nears death, all fear has been addressed, forgiveness has been given, and he actually has very little to say on his deathbed. Both Jacob and Joseph asked to be buried in the land of Israel. This shows us another important lesson, the importance of clarifying our wishes and making them known to our families. We can also turn to modern Jewish sources for guidance on approaching older age. I recently got copies of two wonderful books, Wise Aging by Rabbi Rachel Cowan and Dr. Linda Thal. It's a beautiful book that can either be read by itself or used as a source in wise aging groups that engage in discussion and exercises together. I've never been to Temple Amuna's own wisdom project, but I would assume that there's some similarity in the work of that group and what a wise aging group would do. And for those of us who are familiar with the Jewish catalog, this might look familiar. Getting Good at Getting Older is essentially a Jewish catalog for our older years. It was written by Richard Siegel, one of the creators of the Jewish catalog, and Rabbi Laura Geller. And as they point out, the many years of, God willing, healthy and vibrant older age that we have is something that generations in the past didn't have. And so we might need a new Jewish catalog for ourselves, those of us who are approaching or in our older ages. In the Torah and in these books, there's a wealth of guidance about living well and wisely in our older years. And in fact, there's so much guidance that it can be a bit overwhelming at times. As I approached my 70th birthday, when I thought about making every day count, my internal voice went through questions and a checklist that went something like, am I doing enough? Am I doing it right? Have I done all the planning that I should be doing? Am I contributing enough to this world? What else should I be doing? Am I doing enough Jewish and secular learning? Where do I want to travel? Am I connecting with friends and family? Sometimes it's not easy to live in this head. These are all important questions, but it was as if I was trying to write a resume or make sure I had enough activities on my college application. What about this being a different stage of life? It felt pressured and like something was missing. I needed to shift my thinking. I've since found a few things that have been helpful to me in making that shift. There's a part of wise aging in this book that talks about more time for being, not doing. This stage of life lets us let go of some of the pressures to achieve. One quote stayed with me. We don't need to feel busy or productive to feel authentic anymore. We can move more deliberately. Take our time to experience people, places, and moments more fully. We can be less motivated by shoulds and have-tos and more by want-tos. This has helped me slow down and let me experience and feel my life more. And then I found a quote from Abraham Joshua Heschel that also really spoke to me. These years are indeed formative years, rich in possibilities, to deepen understanding and compassion, to widen the horizon of honesty, to refine the sense of fairness. One ought to enter old age the way one enters senior year at a university, in excited anticipation. But the attainment of wisdom is the work of a lifetime. This tells me to tap into my curiosity, to open up to first possibilities. A further shift came as I thought about the song that we started with. The English words in the song are not a direct translation of the verse from the Psalms. The English words interpret the verse as, teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Focusing on treasuring each day puts me in a place of awareness and gratitude. But, you may ask, how does this open our hearts to wisdom? Here are a few possibilities. Treasuring each day and focusing on gratitude reminds us that everyday moments have worth. A grateful mindset keeps the heart open and makes us more willing to learn. Treasuring each day helps us to slow down and notice what really matters. When we value the present moment, we pay closer attention to our experiences, which allows understanding and insight to grow. When we see each day as important, we think about what we are learning and how our choices affect us and others, which leads to wiser living. Treasuring each day helps us focus on meaning and relationships instead of rushing through life. By living with attention, we can make clearer, wiser choices rooted in understanding and care. Every day really does have something in it that we can treasure. We can notice and savor the special moments, big and small. We can notice the joy that each day brings and focus on gratitude for many blessings we have in our lives, including this wonderful community. Whatever our stage of life, may we see every day as a treasure, and may we approach the world with an open heart. Shabbat Shalom.